In the year 1991, the company Sega let loose on the world the success known as Sonic the Hedgehog. And I already talked about that game. Today, we're talking about the hit sequel, which I believe actually outperformed the original game, if I'm not mistaken. Sonic the Hedgehog 2! Or as I like to call it, just Sonic 2. Don't you know? Because not only is this the sequel to Sonic 1, but we've got a second character to worry about. Tails, yeah, is the orange fox over there. You know, he follows Sonic around. He does a pretty good job of it too with his propeller tails thing. Yeah, he has two tails. Isn't that something? Now, in real life, there is no such thing as a fox with more than one tail, you see. However, when it comes to the world of fiction, there's no limit to the amount of tails foxes can have. I, of course, would like to point attention to the mythical nine-tailed fox, which exists in all sorts of media. But yeah, welcome to Sonic the Hedgehog 2. This is a wholesale improvement over the original game. And you might be wondering, how did I get this game, this whole commentary to be exactly the same, almost exactly the same length as the first one? Here's the thing, I didn't cut out all of the special stages in the original game for that commentary, but for this one, I'm only leaving in this first special stage. There's not much to say. You're basically running down a tunnel in a pseudo 3D environment. What it actually is that the screen is scrolling forward, but the characters are actually still moving in place as far as the system's processing is concerned, you see. Definitely very mind-blowing technology all the way back in the early 90s, you know. And this was a thing a little bit before stuff with the more advanced Super Effects chip on the Super Nintendo. So I guess Sega does what Nintendo don't, huh? Bringing up that old debate. Yeah, I was a little too young to be truly involved in any console wars sort of thing back then. You see, when Sonic the Hedgehog 2 was released, I was only 1 year old. Yeah, I'm as old as Sonic, in a lot of ways, yeah. Rub it all in, why don't ya? Don't ya? But, you know, what do I think of Sonic 2? And I'm gonna keep calling it Sonic 2. So all you sticklers for details, don't mind me too much, alright? I tend to ramble on, so I would like to save on the rambling, don't you know? But Sonic 2, let me tell you, this game is so much better than the original game. And a lot of people will consider this their favorite Sonic game of all time. And I hope that by watching my playthrough, maybe not so much listening to my commentary, but that should probably help to give some context to things, you may start to slowly understand why. And while there is another 2D Sonic game I like more than this one, personally I like more than this one, and I think objectively, depending on how you look at this game that I'm talking about, it could be objectively better or it could be objectively worse than Sonic 2, matter of fact. As I said, I am cutting out all of the other special stages. I am getting all the Chaos Emeralds, and Super Sonic is going to get a lot more of a spotlight in this playthrough than the playthrough I did half a decade ago, let me tell you. Man, that playthrough was honestly not that bad. It was an hour 15 minutes, and the new playthrough, uncut compared to this one, is an hour and 5 minutes, which I gotta say is a substantial improvement. Well, Sonic 1's playthrough is a substantial improvement. I hope when I get to Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I can knock down that playthrough considerably. But anyways, Sonic 2 is really quite the amazing sequel. So first of all, you may remember from the original Sonic 1 that there were really only 6 zones to go through. But each of the zones had 3 acts, as they called it. So it's basically, you're doing 3 levels in a world, and then you're doing 3 levels in another world, and so on and so forth. Setting aside the mild mood whiplash that Scrap Brain threw at you for its 3rd act, with the whole the pseudo-labyrinth zone situation. You will be happy to know that even though Sonic 2 has way more zones than Sonic 1, there isn't really any particular set of levels that I would say is as terrible to deal with as the Labyrinth Zone, and to a lesser degree, Act 3 of Scrap Brain Zone from Sonic 1. There is one that comes close, and we're going to be seeing that close to the end of the game, so in about 40 or so minutes from now. By the way, do take your time to breathe in and breathe out while you're listening to this. I recommend breathing in for 5 seconds, holding for 3, and then releasing for 4 to 5. Maybe add or reduce seconds depending on your lung capacity and or body weight, or BMI. BMI is the more appropriate way to say it, you know. But, oh, by the way, to get to a special stage, you will need to have 50 rings before you reach a goalpost. So what you're going to see me do early on, I'm basically grinding Emerald Hill Zone, which is the new Green Hill Zone. It's pretty much the same thing. I can't say that I can't be a hypocrite and say that I like Emerald Hill Zone better than Green Hill Zone without not liking Green Hill Zone. You know, it's essentially mostly the same thing. I would say maybe Emerald Hill is a little more blue, seems to have a little more focus on the water, which is why I like it more, but again, I would be kind of a hypocrite, I think. But yeah, you get to a special stage, you do all that stuff. Man, I think I'm constantly derailing myself, but I'm sure we have plenty of time to go back to topics as we go through this. But yes, the whole breathing in and breathing out thing is it's a breathing exercise designed to keep you relaxed and to reduce your stress levels. Which is really helpful because, let me tell you, even though Sonic 2 is nowhere near as oddly designed with the level design as Sonic 1, and it's nowhere near as hard overall, I would still say that trying to do this whole game live without dying and getting all the special stages on the first try would be near impossible still. So, unfortunately, we are doing the post-commentary thing again. And to finish it off, if I were hypothetically to do a commentary for Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I probably would do the post-commentary again just for consistency's sake. At any rate, though, yeah, that was Emerald Hill Zone. Went by pretty quick. And, you know, the first Eggman boss is the Drill Mecha. Probably the second most iconic next to the Wrecking Ball Mecha from Sonic 1. I barely even talked about the mechas because they come by so quick. Like, defeat them so quickly, you see. But yes, what I was talking about with special stages, you need 50 rings before you reach a goalpost. Every individual act of level, or zone, will tend to have at least one, usually more than one. There was actually a bit of difficulties during Chemical Plant Act 1, where I could not, for the life of me, find a goalpost. It turns out, you can finish this level, the level I'm on right now, so quickly, like, less than 2 minutes. Maybe even less than a minute and a half, I don't know. But, for once, you gotta take the slow and steady approach, fall below the floor, and find a somewhat hidden goalpost over here. I mean, I'm only doing this so that way I can have Supersonic before the third zone. In the old playthrough, I think I got Supersonic by, like, zone 6 or 7 or something like that. There are so many zones in this game, I can't for the life of me remember the exact number. So the approach for Sonic 2 compared to Sonic 1 is that where Sonic 1 has 3 acts per zone, it's only 6 zones. Sonic 2 only throws 2 acts per zone, for the most part. Keep a pin note on that when we get to the later part of the game. It's 2 acts per zone, but there's more zones. So that you might be thinking, well, okay, so how is Sonic 2 a longer game than Sonic 1? Because there's a higher quantity of zones, but it doesn't... as for the exact level count, I don't know. Like, let me just go off the top of my head here. 3 times 6 for Sonic 1 would be 18, not counting the special stages. I'm not going to count the special stages in the equations at all, alright? Oh, by the way, before I continue with this train of thought, Chemical Plant's music theme is one of the best pieces of video game music I have ever listened to. And I have been playing video games since the mid-1990s. And I've heard a lot of great music tracks, too. Highly recommend the composers Koji Kondo, Yoko Shimomura, and there is one other good one I like, but maybe I'll come back to it there. Well, I guess whoever composes the Sonic... Oh, Jun Senoi! My man! Yeah, there you go. That's the guy that does a lot of music for the Sonic Adventure games. Not so much the classic era that we're on right now. But, yeah, so for Sonic 1, it was 3 acts divided by... No, wait, 6 zones divided by 3. Or times 3. So 18 levels, not counting special stages. Alright. Sonic 2, let me see if I can get this right. There's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, oh god, 6, 7. I want to say there's 8 or 9 zones in this game. One of them has 3 acts, for some reason. I don't know why they did that the way they did. All of the other ones are technically 2 acts apiece. So, that's roughly the same amount, if not slightly more levels than Sonic 1. Some of these levels are a little shorter than average compared to the Sonic 1 levels, and some are a little bit long. Some are longer and some are shorter. I find in general they tend to be shorter. So you see, by doing this, playing Sonic 2, you're gonna feel the speed, because you're not going to be dwelling in one spot for very long, compared to Sonic 1. Especially with levels like Marble Zone and Labyrinth Zone, where the level design highly encourages you not to be a speed demon, unlike a lot of levels in Sonic 2. Like Chemical Plant and Emerald Hill, it is very easy to speedrun these levels unintentionally. And by doing so, you're also probably going to miss some goalposts and not be able to get Supersonic as quickly as you would like to. But, you know, you get so many opportunities for special stages in Sonic 2. You know, Sonic 1, you had to collect 50 rings by the end of the first or second act. And there were only 6 zones, so you only had 12 chances to get 6 emeralds. Oh, and don't worry, they fixed the emerald count for Sonic 2 and onward, for the most part. 7 emeralds to collect. 7 emeralds in hand. You know, feet in sand and all that stuff. So, yeah. That was Chemical Plant, though. If you stick to the top route, avoid the water best you can, you're gonna blast through Chemical Plant real fast. And now that we have Supersonic all settled and squared away with it, yes, I've already done the 7 special stages. Like I said, I cut the other 6, so the pacing is just that amazing. So Aquatic Ruin is aesthetically one of my favorite zones in the game. However, the level design is definitely a bit closer to some of the lesser parts of Sonic 1. Which is to say, is a little bit better than that, but for the Sonic 2 average, where I feel like the level design is, for the most part, a wholesale improvement over Sonic 1, like, it's so much easier to practice the levels in Sonic 2 a little bit over and over, and they're so short, it doesn't take long to practice them at all. Save states are a godsend, by the way, instead of resetting the game from scratch, as it were. Scratch and Grounder, you see what I did there? Also, yes, I totally just finished the first act of Aquatic Ruin in under a minute. Holy cow. The red robots that look like Grounder from the cartoon show, I don't think they're called Grounder. They're just based on Grounder's model, I guess you could say. I mean, there are no chicken robots based on Scratch, as far as I know. Scratch seems to be a one-of-a-kind robot chicken dude, so, you know. I always like this laugh. Kind of reminds me of Woody Woodpecker a little bit. Post in the comments who you think, which cartoon bird has a better laugh. Woody Woodpecker or Scratch from The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. I feel like Scratch's is a lot more of an asshole kind of laugh, whereas Woody Woodpecker is more of an annoying douchebag kind of laugh. But that's just my interpretation of both. Those are both cartoons I watched in my childhood. You can guess which cartoon I saw a lot more of, considering the age of me and the age of the cartoons in question, alright? But yeah, Aquatic Ruins level design. It is partially a water level. Again, a lot like with Chemical Plant, if you stick to the upper roots as much as possible, which I find is a lot harder to do here than in Chemical Plant, you're gonna go through these a lot quicker. Oh hey, and there's Supersonic, finally getting to show him off just right before the boss of Aquatic Ruin. Let me tell ya, Supersonic breaks this boss like I don't know what, because for some reason, in Sonic 2, Supersonic makes Sonic, or when he goes super, he's able to jump much higher, which I don't really understand why he jumps higher. I understand that he goes so fast now, like, Supersonic is difficult to control in the air. So, you're trading, oh, you're invincible though! So the only way you can die with Supersonic is if you fall in a bottomless pit, which there aren't very many of in the classic Sonic games, unlike, some of the newer ones, of the handheld variety, you see. But, yeah, Supersonic is faster, much faster, invincible to all but crushing and bottomless pits. But you gotta collect 50 rings and jump in the air, and you'll automatically turn to Supersonic. I don't remember when exactly they changed it to where you had to push the jump button again in the air to do Supersonic. It might be implemented in Sonic 3 and K. I guess we'll have to wait and see if I were to hypothetically do a commentary for those. You know, that whole story is something we could probably say for another time. Actually, something I was brain farting on when I was doing the Sonic 1 commentary, I actually forgot that I did a post-commentary Let's Play of Sonic Heroes, though I really abridged the hell out of it. I just did Team Rose's story and the last story, which made for a very brisk, fast and brisk commentary, you know, all things considered, but makes me wonder if maybe I should go back to Sonic Heroes and do a commentary on the one campaign of the game that people actually care about. I don't know, I might, like I said, you just gotta think about it, you know? Yeah, think about it. You can't just, force people to do things, you know? Doing things naturally, just if you feel like it or whether you don't, it's always the best thing to do. Don't go against the grain unless you really have to, yeah? Sometimes going with the flow can be just as effective as going against the grain. At least I've come to find in my experiences. But, and now, we're actually entering the first real casino level of the entire Sonic series, I want to say. Casino Night Zone. Music theme is really catchy. I'm not listening to it now, because as usual, I don't leave game audio on. Doesn't matter if it's live or post when I'm recording commentaries, because I don't want it to interfere with the audio, and let me tell you, it can cause some nasty echoing. You definitely don't want to have that echoing in there. Oh yeah, something else I want to throw out to any of my viewers that may be sensitive to seizures or flashing lights. I remembered to turn the brightness down this time, because I know I was a little bit of a hypocrite, because I was saying, you know, I usually do that for games that are really bright. I guess Sonic 1 isn't as bright of a game as Sonic 2, to be fair. But yeah, I remember to turn the brightness down a little bit, and for Casino Night in particular, that really helps. This is only going to really apply for this commentary, which, now I think about it, is probably antithetical, because there might be people that aren't even watching this. You're just listening to me talk about Sonic 2 and other miscellaneous things that may or may not be Sonic and or Sega related, but, you know. But I'm just letting you know, if you don't see it, yes, I did remember to turn the brightness down a little bit, just for sake of it. That and cutting out the special stages, man. This is probably going to be the best paced Let's Play commentary of Sonic 2 you're going to find in all of YouTube. And how often do you see people do commentaries for games in one shot? Just so you know, I like to do these in hour-ish long formats, and If I can finish the game in that length of time, I will. But if I can't, just give it another hour or two. I have a bunch of other Let's Play videos uploaded to whatever channel this is being uploaded to, let me tell you. The history I have had on YouTube, from Temple of the Azure Flame to whatever came after that. Now it's like there's a deal with a friend of mine that goes by the name Loose Goose. They're basically uploading all my gaming related content to that channel. It seems to be doing pretty well. At least it'll protect my identity from all the crazy people that I associate myself with in my life. And they may or may not choose to do weird stuff. I could sit down here and talk about it, but it's mostly unrelated to Sonic. Believe it or not, the autism that I've had to deal with is not Sonic the Hedgehog related. It's actually Parappa the Rapper related, but we're gonna just put that on the back burner. So welcome to the zone that has my favorite music track in the entire game. I wish I could listen to it now and sing along to it because it is so irresistibly catchy. It's like da 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 da. Oh man, I gotta stop myself because I know there's gonna be game audio in the background. It's gonna be totally out of sync with how I'm singing. I gotta just stop myself here. So yeah, this is the 5th zone, by the way. And you might be thinking, oh, this is the second to last zone if you're playing Sonic 1. Reminder, this is not Sonic 1. This is the much superior Sonic the 2 you see. And we will not be we're maybe like a little over halfway through the game, I would say. Well, you can see by the length of the video, we're just under halfway through it, so yeah, we're not even really halfway through the game, let me tell you. So yeah, roughly the halfway point. I remember when I first got here, the first time I played through Sonic 2 to completion, which was on the Sonic Mega Collection, by the way, for the GameCube. Nice. Epic little compilation there, and yeah, it's a really nice compilation. What I'm planning to do for these replays of the classic Sonic games is I'm going to release individual long play videos for all of them, and I think I'm actually going to consolidate at least Sonic 1, 2, and 3 and K, maybe Mean Bean Machine and Flicky. I don't know about 3D Blast because that's kind of on the longer side, but I'm going to release a Sonic Mega Collection long play, and that's going to include some exclusive stuff. It's going to have different editing for the actual, the replays of Sonic 1, 2, and 3. They're going to have to be edited because there's going to be a lot of footage being implemented together, but I hope people can enjoy that, just having like 2 separate ways to view the games. But going back to Hilltop, though, man, this music is great. The theme is pretty good, too, although it is a little bit of a rehash of Emerald Hill, just a little bit, with all the greens and whatnot. But the difference is that Emerald Hill and Green Hill are lower to the ground. Hilltop is, much higher up. You can see the clouds in the background. Gotta say, that is a stunning background for a 2D game. Again, from the early 90s, too, man. That's just impressive, I gotta say. Whether you consider the Sega Genesis better than the Super Nintendo, one or the other, can we just sit here and agree that both systems were really impressive for their time? What they were starting to be able to do toward the end of their system lifespans is just utterly amazing, and it's a testament that some of those later games have been difficult to emulate. Particularly on the Super Nintendo side with games like my favorite game of all time, Yoshi's Island. The later Mega Man X games, with the fancy Super FX chips and the other kinds of chips too in the case of the Mega Man X games, I believe. I think X2 and X3 uses different chips besides the Super FX, so that's why they're, for some reason, difficult to emulate on an emulator, but if you actually try to play the games on the newer compilations they have on PC, PS4, and all that stuff, I think they emulate pretty okay, thankfully. So that's pretty cool. You know, they've also, oh man, that actually reminds me of something weird that Sega's been doing lately with the re-releases of the classic Sonic games. This doesn't really pertain to Sonic 2 so much, actually, but it does pertain to Sonic 3 and Knuckles. And I don't want to delve too much into it in case I do a commentary for those games or that game or however you look at that whole thing. I just want to say it is very weird that Mega Collection has Sonic 3 and Knuckles. It also has it has Knuckles and Sonic 2. I don't remember exactly what the name was, but basically the original Genesis cartridge of Sonic and Knuckles, I'm sorry, allowed you to lock on other Genesis cartridges, right? So there was like a slot on top of the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge, I think. I've never seen any of this firsthand. Actually, I might have, in a Goodwill, maybe in the mid-2000s or something like that, but never in depth, mind you. Because the way I would always want to play and experience the classic Sonic games was through Sonic Mega Collection on the GameCube, later on the Wii. Still on the Wii. So, anyway, yeah, the Sonic and Knuckles cartridge has a lock-on slot, believe it or not. And if you put Sonic 2 on top of it, you can play as Knuckles in Sonic 2. And, of course, you could play as Knuckles in Sonic 3 and also to Sonic and Knuckles, you know? So, but if you try to put Sonic 1 or any other Genesis cartridge, you just get to play a game called Blue Sphere. Which, spoiler alert, is actually basically the special stages of Sonic 3 and Knuckles. So, you know. By the way, welcome to Mystic Mine. Another zone with great music. Good lord. I'm just beating a dead horse at this point. Look, I'm going to tell you one thing. I've played a lot of Sonic the Hedgehog games in my life. I don't think I've played every single one, but if it was released on any Nintendo console from the GameCube onward, including handhelds, I've probably played it or sampled it one way or the other. And there is one thing that I can definitively state, that for 97.5% of those Sonic games, I would say have great music. Yes, even the abominable Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. It has really great... It's honestly on the lower end of soundtracks for me personally, but objectively speaking, there's some great music to be had there. And even in the earlier years of Sonic, stuff like Mean Bean Machine, which may not be everybody's cup of tea, it's not a bad game at all. It's just maybe not somebody's cup of tea, going from a speedy 2D platformer to a slower paced puzzle game, which I actually love a lot, so, you know, give it a chance if you haven't. But the music in that game is good too. Not really Sonic music, just more general Sega music, but still. Wait, was there supposed to be a boss fight there? Oh yeah, Super Sonic for the win. Yeah, actually, that boss right there, I remember fighting without Super Sonic. I remember it being pretty hard. Those were simpler times. Me and my younger years. Waxing nostalgia. By the way, welcome to Oil Ocean. This is probably... If the next zone isn't the worst one that you might like the least, it might be this one. Although I do still kind of dig it. It's basically a factory theme, but with also a bit of an oil theme too. Thankfully, it's not technically a water level like Chemical Plant was. Man, Chemical Plant feels like it was ages ago by now. Shock and surprise, but that is not the case. So yeah, octopus enemies. There's also going to be seahorse enemies too, which I believe the Japanese call Tatsunokos. And I think they call octopuses, tacos. No, not tacos as in Taco Bell with a C. taco with a K. It's Japanese, alright? It's a different language. Can we at least try to respect that? Alright, let's try to respect other people's languages and whatnot, because let me tell you, different languages and different cultures, it's beautiful, man. We should learn to admire and appreciate all that, rather than being skeptical just because it's different. We have to acknowledge that the world is large and vast, and to keep ourselves shut into an echo chamber or any sort of chamber of any sort, it's not healthy in any sort of degree. It's not healthy for a developing mind, and it's not healthy for a developed mind, if you ask me. Oh, by the way, one reason I try to make a habit of getting Supersonic before Oil Ocean is because Supersonic utterly breaks Oil Ocean, because you are so fast. You can just jump up the oil slides, which you normally, I don't think you can do. So, what did I just do there? Yeah, I have no idea. Supersonic can break this level so bad. I don't know if it's so much for this first act or the second act. You can get lost, and you can get yourself caught up in a loop, because you're going up and down and all around paths that you technically shouldn't, because you're jumping much higher than you should be able to. Not to mention your speed and velocity is so constant. Speaking of speed and velocity, so by going through these games, I hope you start to understand the real reason why people like me and people like some fans love to play Sonic the Hedgehog games. It's exhilarating to have practiced the level over and over, not too much, just a couple times. Try to remember where all of the major obstacles are, and then react to all those fast and quickly in real time, and completing the levels as fast as possible. It's exhilarating, it really is, and any Sonic game that allows you to do that and doesn't waste your time otherwise, it's going to be considered a good Sonic game, even by the more, I'll say the more picky Sonic enthusiasts, I guess you could say, I don't know. So, I guess that's one reason why people are going gaga over Sonic Mania rather than Sonic Forces. Because, again, I haven't really gotten a chance to play much of Sonic Forces at all. I have sampled Sonic Mania a good bit, though, and, yeah, it sure does play like Sonic the Hedgehog 3.5 or the real Sonic 4, depending on how you look at it, because the real Sonic 4 is, well, a bit debatable in the quality department. Also a game that I haven't played much of, but I've seen gameplay footage and I've seen other people play it, and I barely remember it, honestly. Like Sonic 4. I remember watching the great Clement play through Sonic the Hedgehog 4 episodes 1 and 2. And I can't remember anything of it other than the first zone of each game. So, if you're wondering if that'll ever show up on any gaming YouTube channel I operate or cooperate on, maybe? But I wouldn't hold your breath because, and plus, trying to get all the special stages in those games without save states, oh man, that's gonna be a real hoot. Not in the good way. Not the good hoot that you usually hear from an owl. Let me tell you, owls, they're cool. So that's Oil Ocean. It does have a great background. The sunset background I do dig, especially the orange clashing on the dark purple of the oil. It's a nice touch. Really nice color aesthetic going on there. That's a general theme of Sonic 2. It just seems like on an aesthetical level, it's a huge upgrade over Sonic 1. Thinking about it, post in the comments, in what way do you think Sonic 1 is better than Sonic 2? I would love to read some totally not half-assed arguments about that, by the way. So, welcome to... oh boy. Welcome to Metropolis Zone, which sounds good on paper. I know, sounds good on paper. Metropolis Zone? Hey, that sounds like a bunch of fun in a Sonic game. You may want to set your expectations accordingly. So, let's just get this part out of the way. Metropolis Zone is the only zone in Sonic 2 to have 3 acts instead of 2. I'm not sure, and I don't remember reading anything about how or why this came to be, considering every zone that precedes it and the one zone that comes after it there are only 2 zones. Well, I guess technically, actually, the next zone could be considered 3 acts, but it's actually kind of weird how they do that. So, still, in each act is just as long, if not longer, usually longer, than any of the other individual acts of any of the other zones in Sonic 2 up to this point. Even in, say, Chemical Plant, even if you get lost for a little bit in the purple water, that's still, it's still nowhere near as long as the second zone of Sonic 1, Marble Zone, you know? And going back to what I was talking about before, Sonic 1, well, I think what it was trying to do with zones like Marble Zone and Labyrinth Zone is Sega wanted to show that sometimes slow and steady can win you the race just as efficiently as running as fast as possible. And some will note that if you ever read the story or watched the Disney cartoon adaptation of The Tortoise and the Hare, the winner is not who you think it is. The winner of the race. I mean, it turns out, Slow and Steady did indeed win that race, without spoiling it too much further, in case you ever decide to read that nice little piece of media there, piece of fiction. It's a pretty good story, honestly. I highly recommend it to anybody. I often quote it quite a bit in my personal life. And I'm sure other people could agree. So, yeah, I hope you have fun looking at me looping around in these bumpers because, turns out the exit was right there the whole time. Welcome to Metropolis Zone of Sonic 2. Oh, God. I don't know what happened here. I mean, I guess you could say it's towards the end of the game. Maybe the developers were starting to slack off a little bit. Maybe they were getting tired from putting so much of their great energy into all of the other zones that precede this, because even some of the lesser zones like Oil Ocean and maybe Aquatic Ruin, I would still say they're pretty fun and a good bit better than even the weakest zones of Sonic 1. Of which, now I think about it, could arguably 1/3 of that game could be considered weak sauce. But Sonic 2, even if you consider the entirety of Metropolis weak sauce, there's still a lot of other levels, man, let me tell you. On that note, I should probably go ahead and take my obligatory sip of water. I will say, the music from Metropolis is really dang catchy. Are you surprised about this point? A Sonic game has good music? Man, it would be much more interesting to show you a Sonic game that doesn't have good music. Good thing that'll never happen. Be right back. Feel free to enjoy listening to the music. I highly recommend H2O, made by the company known as Mother Nature. It really does keep a human body well hydrated through pretty much any situation. I think the only situation where you wouldn't want to drink a lot of water is if you're in a really cold place and you're worried about it being so cold that it literally freezes the water stores that are naturally in your body. Which could explain why humans are so susceptible to frostbite and whatnot. Speaking of which, have you noticed that between Sonic 1 and Sonic 2 we haven't had an Ice Beam level yet? A theme that's been usually pretty common in some of the later Sonic games. I haven't seen a snow level yet, so maybe Sonic 3 and Knuckles will have a snow level. Well, I hope you guys enjoy watching that long play when that comes out. Can't promise a commentary, but you never know, stranger things have happened, like how technically the first Sonic game I did a commentary for is Sonic Heroes, but I did that before the classics. Are you serious? Who is making these executive decisions when it comes to my gaming YouTube history and career? Oh, wait, it's mostly just me. That's right. Hey, people make weird decisions all the time, but the thing you need to know is that the past is there for us to learn from it. Not to dwell on it and obsess about it. To learn from it. And you know, we really should learn from ancient man and all their habits. I mean, it's not that we couldn't improve upon it, but sometimes going back to basics and polishing off what, if it ain't broke, why try to fix it? And let me tell you, Metropolis Zone in Sonic the Hedgehog 2 is pretty dang broken. Aside from the music. Music is jumping though. We can't deny that. Actually, I think the boss fight of Metropolis Zone is pretty interesting too. We should be coming up on that maybe about another 2.5 minutes. I couldn't imagine trying to do the special stages in Metropolis at this point because it's so hard to get 50 rings and to hold on to 50 rings in Metropolis Zone. It's not even funny. Oh, by the way, something I actually managed to observe through the many retries of these levels that I had to do. Actually, I think it was mostly Acts 2 and 3 I had to redo a lot. But, if you are Super Sonic, or you're on a, those rotating, I don't want to call them screws, bolts, I guess? If you're on the rotating bolts, whether you're Super Sonic, solo Super Sonic, or you're Sonic and Tails at the same time, Sonic and Tails running on the bolt at the same time is just as fast as Super Sonic float running on the bolt. As it's just as efficient in order to, it's just as efficient for the rotation, I should say. So, that's pretty interesting. But yes, you definitely want to have Super Sonic by the time you get to Metropolis, because the difference between doing Metropolis without constant invincibility and being able to go up these bolts a lot faster is night and day. I want to say if you were doing an any percent playthrough, well, I assume in actual speedruns that people do, I don't think I've seen a Sonic 2 speedrun in a minute. Maybe I should go look one of those up after I'm done with this nice little commentary in here. Oh wait, we're coming to the boss. Not even at the 3-minute mark. Wait, yeah. I guess I am speedrunning this. I didn't even realize. Yeah, so I think the boss concept for this is pretty interesting. Eggman shows up in his regular mecha. You jump to hit him, and he spawns floating decoys. And you can kill the decoys with Sonic or Tails. Pretty fun. Thing about it is, though, Super Sonic with his enhanced jump, you can basically just stand underneath the vehicle and keep jumping, and you'll eventually defeat it rather quickly. So, but I do. Let's just all praise the concept. You know, in the comments, you can praise the concept that I think that was the most interesting boss of the entire game, conceptually speaking. All the other ones, it just seemed like more of the same. You know, I kind of dug the Oil Ocean one. It's kind of like a scorpion underneath the liquid. The Aquatic Ruin one had potential, you know, with the hammer. That went by so quick, I barely even remember it existed. So, welcome to Sky Chase Zone. This is technically Act 1 of Wing Fortress, which is going to be Act 2. And then there's going to be a final zone that's basically just 2 boss fights back to back. But you're not going to have any rings. So, as you can imagine, it's safe state hell. That's one way to put it. Because, I mean, hypothetically, if this was not played on an emulator, I would have 10 lives. I'm sure I could beat both of the bosses back to back within 10 lives. I've done it before. I have beaten this game on authentic hardware. It wasn't easy, let me tell you. I think I had to figure out how to unlock the level select to really finalize it, though. But yes, I have done it at least once in my life. This applies to all of the classic Sonic games. Speaking of that, as far as like replaying games, though, I just want to talk about this brief while we're going through the serene environment of Sky Chase Zone. And Wing Fortress is nowhere near as chill by comparison. But when it comes to replaying games, what I've learned from my brother, who has a much more, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to say restricted, but he doesn't really go back to replay games as often as I do, I find. And I was a little, when I first heard about that, I was like, well, why wouldn't you want to replay games you love to death? And then I started to think, replaying an old classic is great. Especially if you haven't played it in a long time. That really helps a lot. Even if it's a short game. I find that sometimes the distance can make the love grow. You ever heard that expression? I'm sure that expression is used a lot. Not necessarily in this context, but, when it comes to replaying games, something I think I've come to the conclusion of, and, that I've gleaned from my brother's perspective. I'm not taking his perspective wholesale, because that would obviously be lazy and not proper, but basically, if you've already played through a game and beat it, I don't think anyone is obligated to ever replay that game ever again in their entire life. They don't have to. And depending on who you ask, you don't even have to beat the game in the first place if you didn't enjoy your experience or anything like that. Which I agree with, if you're playing a game and you've decided that you don't enjoy it enough to beat it, just dump it and move on. Yeah, it's just a piece of software, But I think this mentality of, if you've played a game once, you don't have to play it again, is a very nice mentality to have. It's like, well, if I feel like replaying Paper Mario for the 100th time, then I shouldn't feel bad about it, But at the same time, I don't have to. I want to. When you want to play a game, it is a much better feeling than if you say, oh, I have to. And that is amplified probably 10 to 20 times when it comes to the possibility or, there's a chance of replaying a game. Now, there are HD re-releases, there are remakes. Some remakes are more extreme than others. Look at the comparison between the Final Fantasy VII remake and the original versus something like Super Mario 64, Super Mario 64 DS, or something like Ocarina of Time, Ocarina of Time 3D. In some of those cases, I would argue that the remakes make them new all over again. And even if you played the original, it may be worth your time to revisit the original under a new coat of paint and or context, and among other things, on a system of higher fidelity. There might be new content, not always the case, but there might be new content to experience too. But that's all I have to say about replaying games. Dialing it back to Sonic 2 though, this is a really cool set piece going on right here. I also like the coincidence that the ring count will keep going down because you're technically still Super Sonic, and by the time you get to the end, you're regular Sonic. Here's a fun fact. The final zone technically counts as a new zone, thus you're basically going to have your ring count reset anyway. By the way, the boss of Wing Fortress was a big nothing burger. Even with your regular Sonic, it's kind of an advancement over the final boss of Sonic 1, actually. So welcome to the final zone. Boss 1 of 2, Silver Sonic, not Metal Sonic or Mecha Sonic. Those will come down the line. This is Silver Sonic. I want to say this is actually the first one. You can tell it's a prototype because, good lord, look how bulky it is compared to the actual Sonic. 8 hits will knock it out. Problem is, if you hit it anywhere but the front, you are going to get hit and you are going to die. Because you don't have rings, one hit kills you. You're basically relying on your life count at this point. Also, if you die to the Death Egg Robot, which is what I'm pretty sure what this thing is called, if you die to it, you will have to redo the Supersonic fight. Which, honestly, when you know what you're doing, it's really not that bad. The 8 hits can fly by pretty quickly if you time things pretty well. So the Death Egg Robot is really difficult because it's got some hitboxes where if you hit it, it'll hit it and it won't hurt you. There's also a lot of parts of the boss that do have a hurt box, and it will kill you. And the hurt boxes include the hands with spikes on them, obviously, the jetpack on the back that's blowing fire. You might think, oh, the fire is just aesthetic. No, the fire will kill you. So don't do that. I think the legs count too, but I'm only 50-50 on that. So guys, that was Sonic the Hedgehog 2. This was my little commentary Let's Play. Man, this felt like it went by a lot quicker than Sonic 1. Welcome to the mantra of Sonic 2 over Sonic 1. This game is faster in the best way possible. It's such an exhilarating game to play compared to Sonic 1. And I can't wait until, maybe... whoa. Maybe I should relax. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. What am I talking about? Stick around. You might find out. At any rate, I've been Lazuli, and that's the name I've been rolling with. That's my name, don't wear it out. So, hope you enjoyed this. See you next time, whatever game I might be talking about. Oh yeah, this is the ending you get if you get Supersonic. I mean, this is obvious, but here you go. Supersonic gets on the plane, and you're gonna get a unique little, art. And again, I do like the art. Unfortunately, you're not gonna get a disgruntled Eggman after the credits. But hey, I think this was a fair trade-off. Take care, guys, and see you next time.